Good day. I am going to go through a presentation or demonstration of working with Packet Tracer. Specifically, with Packet Tracer, we're looking at the assignment Packet Tracer Lab 2.4.1.2. You can find that particular assignment at Cisco Net Academy. If you're following with my mouse, you can go to modules and then click on the appropriate link, which happens to be within week 2 for chapter 2 content. Please remember, when you first open the Packet Tracer file, a .pka file, you are prompted to enter a user profile. Make sure you put your name here. If you do not, and you simply leave the name guest, then when you do submit your work, that particular submission will not count. You must have your name entered as the user profile. If you did not do that, you would actually need to restart the whole process. Download the file and open it for the first time and then go from there. Alright, this is the setup that we are given for this particular Packet Tracer assignment. I'm going to snap it over to this side first so you can see that there are 2 computers, student 1 and student 2, as well as 2 switches, class A and class B. In addition, the instructions that come with this particular assignment look like this. And at the beginning of every Packet Tracer assignment, you will have an addressing table. Usually it's filled out, but as you move along through Packet Tracer assignments, you'll notice that some of it is not, and you'll have to do the reconnaissance work or the critical thinking work to figure out which IP addresses need to be assigned for given interfaces. The objectives obviously explain what we're going to be doing. The whole purpose of this particular Packet Tracer lab is to get you to feel a little bit more comfortable with typing in commands in a particular prompt or command line interface and see that the settings take place and obviously earn you points. So to begin with, if I scroll down here, the requirements, it says use a console connection to access each switch. In everyday life, you normally would need to click down here where my lightning bolt is, and then from there you'd click on a console cable and connect from student 1 computer to class A computer. The way that would look like, I'll show you real quick. Packet Tracer, I'll open up Packet Tracer on this end. In Packet Tracer, remember, this is simulation software. For the file that I'm working on, it does not allow me to add a console cable, and that's simply because they want me to jump right into using just a direct click connection. So what we have here, this is the same setup that we have in the Packet Tracer file. If this is you, because sometimes it will not let you click on the switch, you would click down here, click console cable, and click once here for RS-232, registered standard 232. This is not an Ethernet connection. And then click here to the console port. With that being done, you could click into the computer, we'll wait for it, and click on terminal and say OK. And now if I hit enter, now I am in the switch and I can begin to type commands to see, in this case, what the running configuration looks like. Alright, so some of you might have to go that route. If that's the case, please do so. Others of us, as what I see here, simply I click on the device that I want to configure. So again, when you're working with Packet Tracer files, it will follow one of those 2 scenarios in terms of getting connected. I click on the switch device, I click on CLI tab, which stands for Command Line Interface, and now I'm at the switch's prompt. Right now I'm in user mode. That can be seen simply because I have a greater than symbol. If I type the command enable, that actually moves me to the privileged mode. If I look at my prompt now, my command line has a pound sign or a hashtag. This shows me that I now have the super user or administrator power or privilege. You can use this prompt, the administrator prompt, to do a show run, which is to look at the running configurations that are currently in use. But when it comes to actually wanting to configure something, we need to type the command configure terminal. We are or do have the super user privileges, but we do want to go from a mode that essentially is an information gathering mode, like, hey, I can do a show to show me something. I want to move to something called global configuration mode. By typing the command configure terminal, I have now switched or moved to this mode. From this mode, global configuration mode, I can configure things, settings on the switch that affect the whole switch. Hence, it's called global configuration mode. So one of the commands I need to do is the hostname command, followed by the argument. In this case, this is the noun, the thing we want to name it. We want to name our switch class-a. So we do essentially the verb, the hostname command, and then the argument class-a. Notice that within Cisco, specifically within these packet tracer assignments, the values are case sensitive. So please make sure you type it exactly, otherwise you will not earn points. If you're following along at home, you can see now I've earned 1 point. Now, I'm only going to configure switch A, but if you were doing switch B, you obviously would follow the same sequence of steps, the same syntax, the only difference being your class A switch now is going to be named, your class B switch will be named class B rather than class A. All right, the next bullet point asks us to configure the lines. The lines here actually refer to the communication lines. Let me develop that further. The communications lines here specifically mean the connections, either physical or virtual, that anybody could have that would allow them to get connected to the switch. Specifically to connect, you could say, inside the switch to manage the switch. And right now we're connected, we actually just clicked on the switch, but theoretically we could say we're connected via the console connection. So, in this case, we want to type the the command line, and then we want to configure the console. So we will type line space console space 0. And so if I were to look at the syntax, what it really says is I need to configure this line connection in. The console connection does use a physical console cable. And the reason why I have a 0 there is I'm stating that there is one channel, we could say called channel 0, that is allowed to be used to connect to the switch. So then I need to give a password, and the password there is little x, big A, little w, 6, little k. And we are also going to issue the login command, which means we are requiring a logon. In this case, a login with the given password that I've just entered. For our purposes now, I'm going to type the word exit, and what exit does is it allows us to back up to the previous level. Oftentimes when you're thinking about the Cisco command line interface, it's helpful to think of it in terms of a hierarchy. And so we are moving back up to this general global configuration mode. We just previously were in the line configuration mode, which essentially is a sub-configuration mode. Now we're back to just global configuration. And now we need to continue and configure other connections that other users can use to connect into the switch. And so the other type of connection we want to secure, we're adding a password, is the virtual terminal connection. So VTY stands for virtual teletype. And we use line space VTY space 0 space 15, which means we're opening up the potential for 16 communication channels, numbered 0 through 15. So let me hit enter, and let's talk about this virtual connection. The virtual connection uses Ethernet cabling And specifically, it uses either Telnet or SSH to remotely allow an end user to connect in to a switch and manage the switch. So in this case, we're configuring Telnet, and we still need to follow the same syntax we did previously by entering the password and doing so correctly. It is case sensitive. Make sure I've done this correctly. So little x, big A, little w, 6, and k. And I will do login, again, which means to turn on this logon feature, because at that point all you did was set a password. You didn't say, well, turn on the logon. So we've done that. We're going to type exit. We've gained our points. If you're looking down here with me, we have 3 points now. That's good. Now, let's look at the next bullet point. It says use this particular password, 6EBUP, as the secret password. The whole purpose of this, and I'll write the syntax down for you, is that you are now requiring a password for any user to move from the user mode to the enable mode. So this allows or requires now users that are just in the standard kind of limited account mode when you first connect into a switch. They're required to enter a password simply to log on now with these administrator or super user privileges. The syntax for that is enable secret. The logic behind secret is this. This password is getting hashed, and I'll show you in just a moment what that means. So we entered that. I'm going to hit enter. Enable secret 6EBU. Notice I made a mistake. If you're following along at home with me, I did not type in the correct password. I have a capital P, and so thus I do not gain any extra points. So what I will do is I will simply overwrite that which I just typed. And now let's see if I get some points. I got 2 more points. 6EBU and then little p. Okay, so now let's show you what is meant by the word secret. So I did an exit to go back to the privileged mode, also called enable mode. And I'll do a show run, which is a show run config. What I'd like you to see immediately is this secret password's listed here, and it's hashed using the MD5 hash. You could say encryption, but it's really a scrambling or a mixing. Slightly different than some of the encryption standards, but nonetheless, it is now mixed up. It's scrambled. If I continue now through my settings, at the very end, I'll see all of my line connections. My console connection, just the one, channel 0. My VTY, they actually split them up between 0 and 4 and 5 and 15. But nonetheless, I see all my 16 channels, and notice my passwords are in plain text. That's a problem. So the next bullet point requires us to encrypt or scramble all of the text passwords that are listed in plain text, as you can see here. So I've obviously typed in configure terminal. That's the command used to jump into global config mode. If I type service, and again it's service password dash encryption. If I hit tab right now, I'm starting to spell out password, it will recognize that's the command I need to use. Again, this type of autocomplete or name completion. And I hit enter, and obviously down below I've gained some points. But now if I do a show run, and I go to the end where we have our line configurations, now those passwords, as you can see right here, they've been scrambled. So we are back in business. If someone were to connect into our switch, now they're going to have a difficult time figuring out what those passwords are. All right. Next, down here, include the ward warning and the message of the day banner. So what you can do, if you're getting used to the command prompt, the command line for Cisco, you could just hit shift and then obviously the question mark. And immediately, I issued a question mark. This is giving me a help as to what I possibly can use. Now in this particular task, we're supposed to define a login banner. And the command I would use for that is banner. So I'm going to click Control C, which is essentially to cancel. And I'm going to type the word banner in. I'd like you to get used to doing question marks after every command until you get used to, obviously, good syntax. But essentially what I just did was, I know I need to use the banner command, and by issuing a question mark, essentially what I'm asking is, what additional arguments can I add after the banner command? And the only argument I can use is MOTD, which stands for message of the day. Now, if I want to know what do I put after MOTD, again, what argument, what value could I put there? Well, notice it says C, and then my banner text, and then C. And they say where C is a delimiting character. So more often than not, people use the hashtag, and we can say warning. And we'll just do something like that. You are logging onto company. Oops, spelled that correctly. Equipment. Sure, that's really fierce. All right, now notice I'm encasing, or I'm wrapping around my warning statement within the hashtag, the £. The purpose is you are declaring that, when you write this hashtag right here, the £, here, that's your delimiting character. And so by putting it here, what the exec interpreter will do, Cisco uses something called exec, capital E, capital X, capital E, capital C. It uses it to parse through all of the commands and their arguments that are listed from the command prompt here, the interface here. And this essentially represents the end of the text, the end of the line essentially. So I will do that and hit enter. And we will now move on. We gained a couple more points. And last but not least, it says configure addressing for all devices according to the addressing table. So we'll do that within the computer in just a moment. Before I jump to that though, let's save our configurations. And so the way we save this is doing something called a copy run start. That is short or abbreviated for copy running dash config space startup dash config. So let's do that first. Make sure we say yes and accept the default name, which is startup config. Gained a few more points. Now I'm going to minimize this. We'll keep it there, still there, but we're going to go to the student 1 computer. You'll want to go to the desktop tab. This is the way that Cisco has designed this program. And you'll want to go to IP configuration. With an IP configuration, we will want to enter the correct IP address. 107.20.10. Now the subnet mask, let's make sure we type this correctly. I'm looking at this chart here. I'm in the Class A computer. Student 1 computer. 128.107.20. That's my mistake. 25. Now we're back in business. And we're supposed to do 255.255.255.0 as is listed right here. So let's make sure we do that. Now as we're working along, let me make sure there's nothing else left. Let me close this. By closing it, you're automatically saving it. I have 26 points. I'm still missing a few points. So what I'd like to do right now is show you something down below here. When you're working on a packet tracer file, you can simply click check results, and we can figure out what things we've earned points for and what things obviously we haven't earned points for. So I'll wait for this to load, but this is very, very, very helpful. Once this window opens, you'll want to click on assessment items. Notice it says we did not configure the IP address for the switch's VLAN. Okay, something I forgot to do. So let's go back. Let's scroll down here though, just to check. We did the student 1 computer, that's good. Still need to do student 2 computer. The class B switch, we've done nothing on that. But at least it shows me what I've done, what's correct, and what I'm missing. So I still need to give an IP address to the switch, to VLAN 1. I need to enable the port, and I also need to put the right mask in. So that's easy. I'll click on close. I'm going to snap this back over so you can see what's going to happen. One moment, let me make sure it snaps. There we go. And let's jump back into that Cisco prompt. Should be right. I saw that. Wait for it. This one right here. Okay, so I'm in the switch, Class A switch. I'm going to go to Configure Terminal. And now I need to configure an interface. In this case, it happens to be Interface VLAN 1. So the simple command I type is interface, then the interface I want to configure, and I hit enter. Now I need to give it an IP address, so I will type the command IP address. Very straightforward, very intuitive, and this is where I'll type 128.107.20.10. Make sure you type the right values, otherwise, like I did with the password earlier, you will not get credit for what you need to do, and obviously you are graded based upon what you get done. Now, as I do this, let's hit enter, and let me look at my values. I suddenly gained 14 points just for doing that. I still need to issue a no shutdown. That is a double negative. And so the opposite of a no shutdown actually means to turn on or to enable. It's the way Cisco does it. When you need to turn something off or disable something in Cisco, you simply say shut down. And so rather than create another command like enable or turn on, they simply add a no in front of it. And it really kind of cleans up the syntax. Just know that anytime you need to enable or to turn something on, no shutdown. Now once I've done that, gain the points I need, I'm going to click Control C, and then brought back to the privileged mode. Now I'm going to go back to here and show you if I do a check results. And I click Assessment Items. For Switch A, which is Class A now, I've done everything possible. And again, for Student 1 computer, I've done everything possible. So, all you would need to do is wrap up working on Class B switch, as well as the Student 2 computer. If you want, you can certainly work on the student computers first, since they're very straightforward, and then work on one switch and then the other. Just get used to syntax. When you are entirely done, make sure you go up to File. Make sure you Save As. Make sure you save the file. I'll drop it on my desktop. Toss my last name in there. Save. Make sure it saves. And obviously I've only done half of it, but if you were to finish it and it's saved, then you would simply go back into our Cisco Net Academy and you would upload the file. You would go to the assignment and then click on the given assignment. I was just there, but I'm kind of just showing you so you can see, and click on the assignment, and within that you can upload the file. All right, with that being said, that covers our discussion and demonstration of configuring within Cisco Packet Tracer. Make sure you do read all of the content for Chapter 2. Chapter 2 gives good examples of commands that you can use, and there were some that I did not use during this demonstration, but can be used and can be helpful. All right, have a great day, and I will see you